But this poll is interesting. It's over 5,700 people polled for PLMR, the PR company, and Electoral Calculus. It's an MRP mega poll, we call it. Reform to gain 170 seats, and at the expense of both the Tories and Labour, although Tories do gain 50 or so seats. But it means that the next election, were this to happen tomorrow, would be a three-way tie. Very unusual in our country to have a three-way tie between three parties. It would give Nigel Farage that balance of power, allowing him to work out who wants to do a deal with, probably the Tory party, given the party's policies. In percentage terms, the Conservatives on 23%, tied with Labour, behind Reform on 24%. Look at the personalities who may be losing their seats here. Wes Streeting, surprisingly, to the Tory party. He would lose his seat to the Tory party. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, to Reform. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, also to Reform. And Jonathan Reynolds, the Business Secretary, also to Reform. So problems here, and I think I've seen a change in the language this week from Labour on Reform. We saw it in PMQs on Wednesday when Sir Keir Starmer took a swipe at Nigel Farage from what I think is a planted question by a backbench Labour MP, and then himself, Farage, was called, of course, by the Speaker, and then was shouted down, or tried to be shouted down, by Labour. They are worried about Reform. It's not a Tory problem so much as a Labour problem. I'm here, by the way, in a location in London we can't disclose, for a cabinet away day, a meeting of the cabinet. The private, the political cabinet meets after the main cabinet. It could go on any time for 2 hours or all day. They are discussing behind me in the building growth and public services reform.
Labour's Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, is on course for a stunning defeat at the next general election, according to a bombshell poll that predicts she could be ousted from her Ashton, underlean seat by Nigel Farage's insurgent Reform U. The shock survey, conducted by Electoral Calculus on behalf of Plum, suggests Labour could lose 238 seats, marking a seismic shift in the UK's political landscape. The poll, based on responses from over 5,700 voters, reveals an unprecedented three-way deadlock, with Reform surging to 24% of the vote, while Labour and the Conservatives are tied on 23%. If these numbers materialise on election day, Britain would see a political earthquake. Reform would win 175 seats, the Tories 178, and Labour just 174, plunging the country into uncharted electoral territory. The findings spelled disaster for Labour, which until recently seemed poised for a commanding victory. Rayner is far from the only high-profile casualty. Health Secretary Wes Streeting faces defeat in Ilford North at the hands of the Tories, while Home Secretary Yvette Cooper could lose Pontefract, Castleford, and Nottingham to Reform. Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds is also predicted to be unseated in Stalybridge and Hyde, as Farage's party makes inroads into traditional Labour heartlands. The prospect of a three-way electoral split is virtually unheard of in modern British politics and underscores the deepening fractures in the electorate. While Labour's decline is alarming, the Tories are also failing to capitalise on voter discontent, unable to establish a clear lead despite Labour's crumbling support. The implications for Britain's political future are profound. Martin Baxter, founder of Electoral Calculus, described the situation as an unprecedented three-way tie, highlighting the volatility of public opinion just 7 months after the last general election. With a deeply divided right-wing vote and Reform threatening to shatter the political status quo, the road to the next general election looks increasingly unpredictable. For the major parties, the battle for Britain's future has only just begun.
In terms of policy, you're going to be very surprised. You're going to be very surprised. We've literally been putting in thousands and thousands of FOIs up and down the country for some months. You are not looking at any previous political party that I led. Albeit they were very valiant and also incredibly successful. This is a completely different mindset. We are getting to the bottom of waste at local government. We're getting to the bottom of overpay of too many officials at local government. We are also going to shock you and surprise you when we show you some of the contracts that have been signed, and I'm talking 5 and 10-year contracts that have been signed by existing county councils for essential services that are being delivered very, very badly. And we're going to show you how reform can fix it. We're going to show you how we can give better value for money for council taxpayers. We're going to show you how at local government we can do things better. And if we get that right, then we'll be able to show you in 2028, 2029, how we can do that at a national level. This is not a flippant campaign. We've spent 6 months on this. And as Zia says, the biggest job I've had over the course of the last 7 months has been behind the scenes, working with Zia and others, getting us match fit, organised, prepared, planned, ready to do this. May the 1st for us, it really is. In a sense, July the 4th was our first outing. We were like the rookies, going out on a big scale, and we got a handful elected and 4 million votes, and that was about what I thought we could achieve. We were held back by some people that shouldn't be part of us. That's never going to happen again. And I want to be clear, we're not messing about. We intend to win the next general election. And you can laugh if you like, but I tell you what, people have laughed at me before.
Nigel Farage has unveiled a bold new grassroots political strategy, vowing to tackle local government waste and lay the foundations for a national breakthrough by 2020-2029. In a televised interview, the Reform UK leader outlined his long-term vision, signaling an evolution in his political approach, one that prioritizes efficiency, accountability, and taxpayer value at the local level as a stepping stone to electoral success on the national stage. The move marks a strategic pivot for Farage, who is looking beyond his traditional role as a disruptor of the political establishment and towards a sustained electoral movement. Rather than focusing solely on headline-grabbing national policies, Reform UK is setting its sights on reshaping local governance, identifying waste, inefficiencies, and overpayments as critical areas for reform. Farage stated that people are tired of watching their hard-earned money disappear into a bureaucratic black hole, and that it is time to restore accountability at every level of government to ensure taxpayers get real value for their money. By positioning itself as the party of fiscal responsibility and public sector efficiency, Reform UK hopes to establish credibility in the eyes of voters who may have previously viewed the party as a protest movement rather than a viable governing force. Farage and his allies believe that winning at the local level, demonstrating tangible successes in governance, will be crucial to persuading the electorate that Reform UK is not just an alternative to Labour and the Conservatives but a serious contender for national leadership by the time the next general election arrives. Farage made it clear that his ambitions extend well beyond short-term victories. With a general election expected within the next 2 years, Reform UK's immediate challenge is to cement its position as the leading alternative to the major parties. However, Farage's focus on long-term political infrastructure, rather than relying on fleeting electoral momentum, suggests a strategy built for endurance. He said the goal is not just to win a few seats, but to reshape British politics entirely. Despite setbacks in previous elections, Reform UK has seen a surge in polling, with recent figures suggesting it could be on track to win over 170 seats if current trends continue. However, breaking through the two-party stranglehold will require more than strong polling numbers. It will demand demonstrable success in governance. By focusing on local issues, Farage hopes to build a case for Reform UK as a competent, result-driven alternative. If the party can deliver on its promises at the local level, it will have a powerful argument when making its case to voters at the next general election. With public dissatisfaction with both Labour and the Conservatives running high, Farage believes the time is ripe for a political realignment, one that starts in town halls and city councils, but ultimately ends in Downing Street. Critics argue that Farage's latest pivot may be too little, too late, and that breaking through the entrenched political system will require more than just promises of reform. Others question whether Reform UK can build the local political infrastructure necessary to make a serious impact. Nonetheless, Farage has never been one to shy away from high-risk political gambits, and his track record of shaping national debates, from Brexit to immigration, suggests he should not be underestimated. As the political landscape continues to shift, one thing is clear: Farage's ambitions remain as formidable as ever. Whether his grassroots first strategy will translate into national power remains to be seen. But if history has taught anything, it is that Farage is never far from the political spotlight. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for updates. Join our Telegram community for exclusive content. Link below.